In the chaos of early Christianity, where numerous texts fought for recognition, a discovery was made that shook the foundations of everything we thought we knew. A hidden truth, locked away for nearly 2 millennia, now demands our attention, our curiosity, and our deepest reflection. And this isn't just any truth, it is a truth that could completely rewrite one of the Bible's most infamous stories. Picture this: Egypt, the 1970s. A group of unsuspecting farmers stumbles upon a worn, leather-bound book buried beneath the sands. It wasn't just another ancient relic, it was something far more profound. Decades later, in 2006, this mysterious text was revealed to the world. The Gospel of Judas. Yes, that Judas, the one who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, the man condemned for centuries as the ultimate villain of the Christian story. But what if everything we thought we knew about Judas was wrong? What if, instead of being the villain, Judas was the disciple who understood Jesus' mission better than anyone else? Hold on for a moment. Can you feel the weight of that possibility? This text, lost for 1,700 years, flips the script on the narrative that has been passed down for centuries. Judas isn't the traitor, he is portrayed as Jesus' closest confidant. If this sounds like a plot twist straight out of a thriller, that's because it is. Except this is no work of fiction, this is history revealing itself after nearly 2 millennia of silence. Before we dive deeper, let's take a moment to consider the time when the Gospel of Judas was written. We're talking about the 2nd century, a chaotic period for Christianity. The early church was still figuring out its identity, with different groups debating who Jesus was and what his teachings truly meant. It was during this time that the Gospel of Judas emerged, offering an interpretation that clashed with what would later become mainstream Christian belief. And because it didn't fit the narrative, the early church labeled it as heresy and buried it both figuratively and literally. So why does this matter now? Well, think about it. If a text like the Gospel of Judas can remain hidden for centuries, only to reemerge and challenge everything we thought we knew about Judas' role in Jesus' life, what other truths might still be buried, waiting to be uncovered? What else might we have missed in the layers of history? Now, let's get to the heart of the Gospel of Judas, because this is where things take a jaw-dropping turn. Instead of being the ultimate villain, Judas is portrayed as the disciple who gets it. He understands Jesus' mission on a level that the other disciples simply can't comprehend. Imagine the scene: Jesus, knowing the weight of his destiny, pulls Judas aside and entrusts him with the deepest, most cosmic truth, one that the others are too blind to see. The Gospel of Judas paints a radically different picture of the betrayal. Judas' decision to hand over Jesus isn't an act of greed or cowardice, but rather an act of obedience. Judas is fulfilling a role, a mission that Jesus himself gave him. Jesus needed someone who could see the bigger picture, someone who understood that his physical death was just one part of a grand cosmic plan, and that someone was Judas. What this gospel does is more than just redeem Judas, it completely upends the narrative. It forces us to ask hard questions about everything we've been taught. Was Judas truly the villain we've always believed him to be, or was he following the path that Jesus himself had laid out? And if so, what does that mean for the story of the crucifixion? In this version, Judas isn't a traitor, but a disciple with the deepest understanding of Jesus' mission. The betrayal itself is redefined not as an act of greed, but as a sacred act of trust between Judas and Jesus. Judas, in this gospel, is the one who understood that the crucifixion was not an end, but a necessary part of a divine plan. The other disciples, they're depicted as lost, clinging to outdated ways of thinking, completely missing the point of what Jesus was trying to teach. They see Judas as a betrayer, But in this text, it's clear that Judas is playing a far more significant, divinely appointed role. It's like the ultimate redemption story, except on a cosmic scale. Now, I know this sounds radical, maybe even shocking, but that's exactly the point. The Gospel of Judas shakes the foundations of what we think we know. It forces us to reconsider how we view Judas, Jesus, and the entire story of the crucifixion. If Judas was in on the plan, then maybe, just maybe, we've been telling the story all wrong. The real question we're left with is this: what else might we be missing? What other truths could be out there, hidden, waiting to challenge the narratives we've accepted for so long? In the Gospel of Judas is a reminder that history is full of surprises, and sometimes the most shocking truths are the ones that have been buried the longest. All right, now that we've set the stage, let's dive deeper into this incredible gospel and unravel what makes Judas' role so revolutionary. Hold tight, things are about to get even more wild. This twist raises some serious questions. If Judas was following Jesus' orders, does that mean we've misunderstood the entire purpose of the crucifixion? Was it all part of a divine plan that only Judas was in on? And what does that say about our own perceptions of good and evil, right and wrong? The Gospel of Judas doesn't just tell a different story, it forces us to confront these questions head on. It's like the ultimate plot twist in a movie, where the villain you've been rooting against turns out to be the hero all along. And that's why this text is so powerful. It challenges us to look deeper, to question what we think we know, and to see the story of Jesus and Judas in a whole new light. In the Gospel of Judas, Jesus drops a bombshell that changes everything. The God that the other disciples worship isn't who they think he is. Jesus tells Judas that the God the other apostles are devoted to is actually a lower, flawed being. That's right, the very God that most of us associate with creation, the Old Testament, and the foundations of faith is portrayed here as something entirely different. And not just different, Jesus suggests that this God is malevolent, more like a devil than a divine father. Now, this isn't just any old twist, this flips the entire script on traditional Christian belief. The idea here is rooted in Gnostic thought, which is all about secret knowledge, knowledge that reveals the true nature of the universe. According to this gospel, the real, ultimate God is far above the world of flesh and blood, beyond anything we can grasp. The God that created the material world is not the true God, but rather a lesser, ignorant deity, often referred to as the Demiurge in Gnostic texts. Imagine the shock this must have caused for anyone hearing it for the first time. Jesus isn't just teaching about love and salvation here, he's blowing up the very concept of who or what God is. And the other apostles, the ones who are following this lower God, they're completely in the dark. They're worshiping this being who's essentially a cosmic imposter, while Jesus is trying to guide Judas toward the real truth. This revelation isn't just controversial, it's downright explosive. It turns the idea of divinity on its head. Instead of a loving, all-powerful creator, the God of the Old Testament is presented as a flawed, even dangerous force. And it's not just the material world that's under this being's control. It's the whole structure of religion that gets called into question. What does this mean for Judas? It means he's the only one who's in on the real plan. While the other disciples are busy praying to a false god, Judas is being let in on the ultimate secret. Jesus is showing him the truth behind the curtain, revealing that the world, as they know it, is a deception, and the God they're worshiping is the deceiver. This is where the Gospel of Judas pushes the boundaries of faith and understanding. It forces us to question not just who we think God is, but whether the world we live in is what we think it is, or we, like the other apostles, trapped in a reality created by a false God. And if so, what does it mean to truly follow the teachings of Jesus? Let's get into it. According to the Gospel of Judas, the material world, the one we live in, with all its beauty and suffering, wasn't created by the true ultimate God. Instead, it was the handiwork of this Demiurge, a being who is far from perfect. In fact, this being is portrayed as ignorant, arrogant, and downright malevolent. This isn't the God of love and light. This is a God who is deeply flawed. And according to the text, he's been deceiving humanity from the start. Now, if you're wondering how this all fits together, think about it like this. In many traditional Christian teachings, the world is seen as a creation of God, meant to be good, even if it's fallen. But in the Gospel of Judas, the world is depicted as a kind of trap, a place where the true spiritual essence is imprisoned in the physical, material world. And who's responsible for that prison? You guessed it, the Demiurge. This idea turns the story of creation on its head. Instead of a benevolent God creating the world as a paradise for his children, we have a scenario where a lower, deceptive being creates a world that is inherently flawed and full of suffering. This world, the one we live in, isn't a reflection of divine perfection, but rather the result of a botched creation by a being who doesn't even realize how imperfect his work is. And here's where it gets even more intense. The Gospel of Judas suggests that most people, including the other apostles, are worshiping this flawed creator without even knowing it. They're unknowingly following a God who is more like a jailer than a savior. It's like being in a prison without realizing you're a prisoner, thinking the warden is your protector when he's actually your captor. This concept of the Demiurge isn't just some ancient theological idea. It's a radical challenge to the way we think about reality itself. If the world is created by a flawed being, then what does that say about everything we experience? The good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, it's all part of a creation that isn't what it seems. And this flawed creation, it's designed to keep us trapped, to keep us from seeing the true spiritual reality beyond it. This idea is at the core of Gnostic belief, and the Gospel of Judas takes it to the extreme by having Jesus reveal the secret to Judas. It's as if Jesus is saying the world around you, the God you've been taught to worship, it's all part of a deception. But I'm showing you the truth that goes beyond this flawed world and the being who created it. At this point, it's clear that the Gospel of Judas isn't just offering a different perspective, it's turning the whole thing upside down. One of the most radical ideas in this text is how it portrays Jesus' death. Traditional Christianity teaches that Jesus' crucifixion was a necessary sacrifice for the sins of humanity, an act of ultimate love and redemption. But in this gospel, that narrative is completely flipped on its head. Instead of viewing Jesus' death as a redemptive sacrifice, the Gospel of Judas suggests that his crucifixion is something entirely different. It's not about saving humanity from sin. It's about Jesus escaping the material world altogether. Remember, in this Gnostic view, the material world is seen as a flawed creation by a lesser God. So the goal isn't to save it, but to transcend it. Now, imagine hearing this for the first time if you've grown up with a traditional story. It's like someone telling you that the movie you've watched 100 times actually has a hidden ending you never knew about. In this hidden ending, the hero isn't trying to save the world, he's trying to break free from it. That's the vibe the Gospel of Judas brings to the table. But it doesn't stop there. The text also criticizes the other disciples for misunderstanding Jesus' true mission. According to this gospel, they're stuck in their old ways, clinging to the idea of a sacrificial lamb while completely missing the point. They're worshiping a false god and preaching a message that, according to this text, Jesus never intended. This isn't just a slight deviation from the orthodox teachings. It's a full-blown rejection. The gospel is saying that the core beliefs of mainstream Christianity are based on a misunderstanding, that the apostles, except for Judas, were blind to the truth. And what's the truth? That Jesus' mission wasn't about dying for our sins in the way we've been taught, but about breaking the chains of the material world and revealing a higher, hidden knowledge. What's fascinating is how this gospel positions Judas as the one disciple who truly gets it, while the others are portrayed as misguided. It's almost like the ultimate reversal of roles. The one who's been vilified for centuries is suddenly the hero who understands the real mission. And the rest, they're trapped in the very system that Jesus came to expose. Now let's dive into the implications of perhaps the most shocking idea in this text. Jesus revealing that the God worshipped by the other disciples is actually the devil. This isn't just a dramatic twist, it's a complete redefinition of everything. If the God the people have been worshiping is actually a malevolent force, what does that mean for concepts like salvation, sin, and even the identity of Jesus himself? The Gospel of Judas pushes us into a realm where the lines between good and evil aren't just blurred, they're completely redrawn. Think about the impact of this revelation. Jesus, who is traditionally seen as the Son of God, is portrayed in this gospel as someone who sees through the deception. He's not just a teacher or savior, he's someone with a deep, hidden knowledge of the true nature of the universe. And that knowledge, it's not about confirming what people already believe, it's about tearing it down. In this gospel, Jesus reveals to Judas that the world is under the control of a false god, and that this god is none other than the devil. This isn't the devil in the classic sense of an external enemy. This is the devil as the very being who people think is God. It's the ultimate cosmic trick, worshiping the very entity that keeps you trapped. What does this do to the idea of salvation? If the God people have been praying to is actually a deceiver, then the path to salvation is completely different from what they've been told. It's not about following the rules or adhering to traditional beliefs. According to this gospel, true salvation comes from breaking free from the illusion, from seeing the world and its creator for what they really are. This changes the role of Jesus as well. He's not just the one who dies for humanity's sins, he's the one who exposes the lie. His mission, as revealed to Judas, isn't to reinforce the existing religious system, it's to shatter it. He's the one who brings the truth, and that truth is as disturbing as it is liberating. This revelation also forces us to rethink the concept of sin. If the world is created by a false god, then what is sin really about? Is it about breaking the laws of this flawed creation, or is it about failing to see through the deception? The Gospel of Judas suggests that true sin isn't about disobedience to a set of rules. It's about ignorance, about not realizing that the world around you is a trap. And Judas, far from being the betrayer, he's the one who is entrusted with this truth. He's the disciple who is given the task of helping Jesus fulfill his mission, not by protecting him, but by setting the stage for his departure from this flawed world. In this sense, Judas isn't just a follower, he's a key player in the cosmic drama that Jesus is unfolding. These ideas are radical, unsettling, and they challenge us to rethink everything we've taken for granted. Now let's explore the legacy of this gospel and the controversy that has surrounded it since its discovery. When the Gospel of Judas was finally unveiled to the world in 2006, it didn't just stir up a bit of academic debate, it sent shockwaves through religious communities, scholars, and the general public alike. Here we had a text that directly contradicted one of the most well-known stories in Christianity. And it wasn't just offering a slight variation. It was flipping the entire narrative on its head. The controversy was immediate and intense. For many, this gospel was seen as a direct threat to the established Christian doctrine. How could something so radically different be accepted when it seemed to go against everything people had believed for centuries? But for others, the Gospel of Judas was a revelation, an opportunity to explore a different perspective on the life and teachings of Jesus. This text also opened up broader discussions about the nature of religious truth. If a gospel like this could exist hidden away for nearly 2 millennia, what else might be out there? What other teachings, ideas, or perspectives have been lost, buried, or suppressed over time? The Gospel of Judas invites us to think critically about the history of religious texts and to consider the possibility that the story we've been told is just one version of a much more complex narrative. And that's really the heart of why this gospel matters. It's not just about Judas or even about Jesus, it's about the very nature of truth. In a world where so many different beliefs and interpretations exist, the Gospel of Judas challenges us to question, to explore, and to seek a deeper understanding. It's a reminder that truth isn't always straightforward, and that sometimes the most important truths are the ones that make us uncomfortable. The legacy of the Gospel of Judas is still unfolding. As scholars continue to study and debate its contents, it remains a powerful symbol of the diversity of early Christian thought and the ongoing quest for spiritual truth. Whether you see it as a dangerous heresy or a profound revelation, there's no denying that the Gospel of Judas has left an indelible mark on the history of religion. In John 8, verse 32, Jesus says, "And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." This verse reminds us of the power of truth to liberate us, even when that truth is challenging or unsettling. The Gospel of Judas, whether you agree with it or not, pushes us to seek that truth, to question, and to never stop searching for a deeper understanding. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. Your support really means a lot to us, and we truly appreciate it. We would love to hear your thoughts and feedback, so feel free to leave a comment below. If you found this video interesting or thought-provoking, please don't forget to give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thank you again, and may God bless you all abundantly.